Good morning, friends. I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Angela, and I'm the Inquisitive Farm Wife. This week, I just woke up, so I'm sounding a little rough. Still waiting on the coffee to brew, but I want to talk to you about the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. Want to do this project with me? I encourage you to get in your pantry, start digging, and make some meals. It's okay. We're human and we make mistakes, and sometimes you just don't get things done the way you want, and you just pick yourself up and you keep going. And that's what I'm doing again this week. I only have about 4 or 5 days worth because last week I got a little behind, but I'm trying to catch myself back up, and let's bring you along and show you what I got done this week. Okay, so here we are, the next morning after we left off. I am super motivated. I am ready to get this pantry challenge going again, and I want to make myself a great breakfast. So I started out with some of my farm fresh eggs. I believe I had one, and then just a splash of farm fresh milk. And I like to kind of whisk that together a little bit. I think your eggs are a little bit fluffier when you do it that way. And of course, I'm using my greased small cast iron skillet. I just love cooking with cast iron, and when they're seasoned well, the eggs don't stick, and it's just a beautiful thing. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of seasoning here to give it a little bit of flavor. We like this particular blend. Oops, maybe a little more than I should have, but that's okay. I'm going to take a flour tortilla that we have just lying around. I'm going to stick my egg, almost looks like an omelet there, and I'm going to add some shredded, I believe it was sharp cheddar cheese that we had sitting in the cheese drawer. And I love lots of cheese. And I decided I had just a few pieces of my turkey bacon left, so I wanted to go ahead and fry those up. There were 3 pieces, and I'll put that on my skillet. You do have to add just a little bit of oil when you work with turkey bacon. It's a little drier of a meat, and so it doesn't have its own fats in it. So you want it, just a little tip, put a little bit of oil in there. I just have a little bit left over from when I was frying the eggs. I like to get a nice crisp sear on them, so I might flip them just a couple of times. And then once they're to your liking, I went ahead and just added that. See, I got a nice crisp on that bacon. Ooh, it's gonna be a good breakfast. And then I'm gonna wrap it up. Just a simple little wrap, turning it into a breakfast burrito. If you want, you can chop up the other ingredients. You could put onions and things like that in there, but I just leave my bacon whole. I don't mess with crumbling it. It works just fine for me. And I also like to add salsa and sour cream, and I like to dip my burrito in that, and it's just something we like to do. For lunch this day, I just had some cookies and hot cider while we played some cards together. So for our evening meal, I decided to make some stuffed squash. I started out with a homemade turkey sausage, and then I had some pre-made pork sausage so that we could have options of different meats. And so I just want to kind of cook that up really good. And while it's going, I'm going to go ahead and get started over here in the kitchen. On the kitchen counter here, and I'm going to cut open the squash to see what it looks like. This is a new kind to me. I don't remember the name right now. I'll try to insert, I'll look it up and see what I think it is. But then I decided, oh wait, before I want to get started cutting, I want to make the stuffing that's going to go inside there. We've done this with acorn squash before, and we really enjoyed it, and so I thought I would give it a try with this kind of squash. And so I just took a stuffing bag that I had gotten on the clearance rack after Thanksgiving. I divided it into 2 different bowls. I have a quart of homemade chicken broth that I had made but had not canned. It was just in the refrigerator. And I'm going to try to kind of divide that along with the fat cap in half. I tried to put a little more fat in one side because the turkey would have less fat. Later, you'll see I didn't end up doing it right anyway, so we'll move on from that. I have these cranberries that I've been trying to use. They are older, the bag got left open, and they are dry, so I thought if I could put those in with the chicken stock, along with the breadcrumbs that are seasoned, we'll go ahead and try to soak them and plump them up. I also like to add pecans to this recipe. I just think it gives it that elevated level of flavor and texture, and we just really like that. So just kind of want to stir it and poke at it and try to get it to absorb all that delicious stock broth that I had made earlier. So there it is, just kind of, we're going to let it soak for a little bit. And every once in a while, I'm going to go back over to the stovetop and I'm going to check in on the meat, making sure that it's cooking. And then I will continue with cleaning up the squash. Of course, you want to wipe out the outsides first, and then we'll get to the inside. And I wasn't sure what to expect here. I will take note that while I am cleaning this out, it almost reminds me a little bit of more of a spaghetti squash than a butternut squash, because it seemed a little bit stringy as I was pulling out the insides. I wasn't sure how much to remove, so I kind of erred on the side of take more. I don't want the yucky stuff, so this is where I cleaned that out at. And this is a good scrap that you can save and definitely would be a treat for my chickens, or the goats would actually enjoy it too. The cows, it depends on the day, but the chickens are always, any of the poultry really, are always happy to eat those insides of my squash. So here they are, all cleaned up and ready. Now I decided I want to add a little bit more seasoning to the stuffing mix because squash is pretty bland. In hindsight, I would have taken and put in a little bit of maybe some olive oil and rubbed on the inside of the squash and roasted them for a bit first, because later you will see I don't think they got fully cooked. Now my acorn squash, I don't have to do that, but this is, like I said, a new kind to me. So in hindsight, I were to do this again, I would go ahead and just put a little bit of oil and roast them for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. So now that I've got the stuffing all seasoned just the way I feel that I want it to be, I'm going to go ahead and just mix this up a little bit. Try to get these flavors to meld. I'm making a mess, of course. And then I'm going to go grab that meat while it's still nice and hot. And see, I put the pork in the one that had more of the fat cap, but it's okay. You know what? They ate it anyway and they enjoyed it and it was fine. So I have the pork sausage in there, and now I'm going to go get the turkey sausage and put in the other bowl. You can see the steam off that. It's nice and hot. I have the oven preheated to, I believe, 350 degrees. Another thing I probably could have done is turned that up to the 425 degrees. That might have helped cook that squash just a bit more. Give this a quick little stir. And then we are going to be ready to start stuffing the squash. I'm going to go ahead and grab out, oh, here we are. You can see, I just want to make sure everything is mixed really well. You can see just how well that the broth was absorbed in there. I'm going to go ahead and add some mozzarella cheese. I like to use mozzarella because it is that stringy, ooey gooey, delicious cheese. And I ended up deciding to use the entire bag because it was a cheese that was older. I wanted to get it used up, and it didn't quite seem like enough, and I wanted it to help kind of bind and stick together the stuffing because I did not put any sort of egg or anything on it. So I am starting out here by putting the squash on my bar pan, and I kind of lined them up in rows. I was going to put the pork on one side and the turkey on the other side, kind of just rearranging the squash. Now, if you want them to lay flat, all you have to do is just slice a piece off the bottom, and it would make for a nice flat surface, and it would make it a little bit easier for not only stuffing but for serving. But I wasn't concerned with that at this point because I was planning on putting them in bowls to serve them, so it wouldn't really matter. And as long as I could get them to stand up enough to get it to cook, I was good. So I'm stuffing the squash with my mixture, pushing it down really good because I don't really want the air pockets in there. I want it nice and full. And so here we just kind of scoop it in, but you'll see here in a minute, I just gave up and decided to use my hands because I wanted to stuff it really full, and with the cup of my hand, I can get a nice rounded edge on top. You could see how I could just kind of push it all in there and get it nice and full. Then I decided I probably wouldn't remember which side is which when I went to pull it out of the oven. And if I turned a certain way, I would probably mess up. And so I got 2 smaller pans and decided to put the pork on one pan and the turkey on another pan so that we could kind of keep that separate for those of us who wanted to choose one version over the other. And, a little more cheese is never a bad thing, right? It gives it a little color, and I had just a little bit of the mild cheddar left and thought, why not go ahead and top this off? And I'm so glad I did because I just love cheddar cheese, and so does my family. And it made me feel good to get one more partial package out of the kitchen and used up. And that's the point in this pantry, is to try to use up all those tidbits. And if you see here, I'm putting an L for left. So I'm reminding myself that the pork was the one that I put in on the left, but I forgot to add foil to the top. So here I am just quickly getting a couple sheets of foil. And because we added the cheese, we want to make sure we spray them with our nonstick spray. Otherwise, all the cheese will come off when I take the foil off, and we don't want that. We want the cheese on our meal. Here we are. I took it out of the oven, and quickly you can see I added some maple syrup. That's another thing that I probably would suggest that you put in your stuffing. I forgot, so I just drizzled some on top. Ooh, look at that shiny, shimmery, sugary maple syrup on there, and it just gives it a little bit of sweetness that it needs, along with that tartness of those cranberries. You can see the inside is almost stringy like a spaghetti squash. In hindsight, again, I would have just cooked it a little longer, and I think it would have been better. Starting off this breakfast by using up the rest of that Life cereal and another banana. Lunch was some leftover bread with avocado slices and a cream cheese mixture. For supper this day, we had a taco burrito bar, and it was super delicious. Starting out this morning with another bowl of oatmeal, trying to use up those cranberries. Lunch was leftovers, and I enjoyed this stuffed squash again. I believe that supper was leftover taco night. Breakfast this morning was using up the very last banana and some delicious oatmeal with fresh cow's milk and cranberries, of course, and a little bit of coffee, you can see. Lunch was super simple. It was just a lunch meat sandwich and a couple of candies. And to wrap up today and the video, my son made a turkey avocado sushi roll for me, and it was delicious. If you have been enjoying watching me stumble through this year's pantry challenge, I would like to invite you to go ahead and ring that notification bell so that when I come back next time, you can watch and see what silliness I do. I also would love to have you subscribe and become part of my YouTube family. Bye for now, friends. See you next time.